done. I can teach my students and I know what to do now. That is amazing. So let me teach this lesson on percentages of amounts, and then I can give this guy his money. Right, guys, so as you know, I'm a little bit stressed today for obvious reasons, but I just wanted to say the work that came in yesterday was absolutely awesome. Okay, I'm not going to do a shout out video today for work. I'm going to do it tomorrow. So if you want to be on that shout out video, make sure you send me an email of your work on the year 5 email. Okay, I'd really love to see your work. So the other year 5 teachers. Right, so without further ado, I think we need to get on with our lesson today, which is on percentages of amounts. Enjoy. Right, so what do you need for the lesson today? You're going to need something to write with and paper. Squared paper is better, but if you have lined paper or blank paper, that is also fine. Now at this point, as I say in every lesson, if you do not have these things, please go and get them, as they are very important for today's lesson. And then press play when you're ready to move on. So what is our LI today? Our LI today is to find percentages of amounts. So your first task is to write the LI and the date at the top of the page. So please pause the video, complete this task, and then press play when you are ready to move on. Lovely. So the next thing we're going to do is a recap of knowledge which we should have learnt yesterday. So this is an opportunity for you to show me how much you learnt yesterday. So I've got 3 questions for you. The first one is, what does percentage mean? So basically, what is the definition of percentage? Next one is, what is the symbol for percentage? And the last question is, if I have 50 over 100, what is this as a percentage? And I've shown you here what 50 over 100 looks like to help you. So please pause the video, complete this task underneath the LI and the date, and then press play when you are ready to go through these questions. Lovely. So what is percentage? Percentage tells us how many parts we will have for every 100 or something. Okay, this is a good definition. I would recommend using this in the future. Okay, number 2, what is the percentage symbol? This is the percentage symbol here. And number 3 is, what is 50 over 100 as a percentage? Now remember, 50 over 100 would be exactly the same as 50%. Okay, now I'm sure most of you got that absolutely right, but if you didn't, please do not worry. Please just send me an email to let me know so I can give you a bit of extra support. And now we are going to move on to our starter. So the answer is 25. How many different questions can you think of which give the answer 25? And I've given you an example of 21 plus 4 is equal to 25. So here we have 25. How many different questions can you think of which give the answer 25? And I am going to give you 1 minute to complete this. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1, go. And you got 30 seconds left. Get writing those questions. 20 seconds. 10 seconds. Get those last ones in. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and stop. Excellent. I'm sure you've got loads, okay? So I'm going to go through a few that I've got. Obviously, there are thousands probably. Well, there are definitely thousands, if not millions of ways of getting to 25, okay? So I'm going to show you some of mine.
And if you didn't get any of these, don't worry, I want to see your one. So make sure you comment below and let me know how you made 25. So the ones I've done are 5 times 5, 30 minus 5, 25 times 1, 1 times 25, 12.5 times 2, 12.5 plus 12.5, and 10 plus 15. Okay, so make sure you comment below your ones if you didn't get these ones. Right, ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to move on to our lesson objective, which, as I said at the beginning, was percentage of an amount. So I hear you ask, Mr. Owens, what is a percentage of an amount? A percentage of an amount is the specific part which we want from the total amount. So I'm going to go through an example with you which should explain this better. Okay, so here we have our total amount of 100. The specific amount we want is 50%. Okay, so we are trying to work out what 50% of 100 is. So we've got 100 here, and we are trying to work out how much is 50% of 100. Okay, so it's quite easy to work this one out. So we know that 50% is the same as 50 over 100. Okay, so 50% of 100 would be 50. Okay, so the specific part we wanted was 50%. So the specific part of this whole thing was that we wanted was 50%, and we have worked out that that is equal to 50. Okay, now when we are trying to find percentages of an amount with a grand total of 100, so the total we have is 100, okay, we can use this method. It is quite easy, but there is a problem, okay? Most of the time we are not using 100, and we cannot just use this method for other amounts. So I hear you ask me, Mr. Rollins, what on earth do we do? Well, you're in luck, people. I'm going to show you. So here we have a total amount of 20. Okay, so here we have a total amount of 20. We want to work out how much 10% of 20 is. Okay, so 10% is a part of 20, but we need to know how big that is. How big is 10% of 20? And remember, 10% is part of 20. That's going to be very important. So how do we work out what 10% of 20 is? Okay, so this is a thought I had earlier. We know of means multiply. So could we just ignore the percent symbol and do 10 times 20? And that would give us our answer. That would give us 10% of 20. What do you think? Pause the video, discuss that with your family member or by yourself if you don't have family with you, and then press play when you have done that. No, you can't ignore the percentage sign. Otherwise, you would have 10 times 20, which equals 200. Okay, you always need to remember that a percentage of an amount is part of the amount. So it cannot be bigger than the total. Therefore, 10% will not be more than my total amount, which is 20. Okay, so just to explain that, here our total amount is 20. 10% is part of this. Okay, so it can't be more of it. It can't be a bigger number than 20 if 10% is part of it. So we can't just ignore the percentage sign and do 10%, 10 times 20. So again, you ask me, Mr. Owens, what do we do? And guess what? Again, you're in luck. I'm going to tell you. So how do we find out what 10% of 20 is? Because a percentage is equivalent to a fraction, okay, it is equal to a fraction, we can turn our percentage into a fraction. We can then multiply our fraction by 20 to give us our answer. Okay, so we can't just do 20 times 10, but what we can do is we can turn our percentage into a fraction and then multiply that fraction by 20. And remember, we know how to multiply fractions by whole numbers. Okay, so that is what we can do, and that is how we can find out what 10% of 20 is. And I'm going to go through a step-by-step guide now of how to do that. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we need to convert the percentage into a fraction. Now remember, the reason why we're doing this is because we just cannot multiply straight away our percentage by the total amount. We can't just do 10 times 20. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to convert the percentage into a fraction. So we did this yesterday. 10% is the same as 10 over 100. Okay, that's step one, to convert the percentage into a fraction. Step two is to multiply the fraction by the total amount. So in that, we've now got our fraction, which is 10 over 100. Now we need to multiply that by our total amount, which is 20, and it's 20 over 1. The 1 is signifying that we have one group, okay? We have one group of 20, okay? So we just do our multiplication to multiply fractions. Remember, we do 10 top times top, so 10 times 20, which is 200, and then bottom times bottom, 100 times 1, which is equal to 100. Now, we have a problem. 200 is much bigger than our amount of 20. And remember, 10% is part of 20. So 10% cannot be bigger than 20. So it cannot be 200. Okay, so what do? We need to simplify. So step 3 is to simplify. Okay, these numbers are quite simple to simplify. So 200, very simply, we can just knock off both of these zeros to start with, and that is reducing it by 10 times. So that would be 20 over 10. And then again, we can knock off the next two zeros because we are reducing it again by 10 times, which would be 2 over 1. So 2, or the top number, would be our answer. So 10% of 20 is 2. And remember, 1 just tells us that we have one whole of 20. Okay, so let's just recap over this again. So 10% of 20. Okay, we can't just do 10 times 20 because that would give us 200. And remember, okay, 10% is part of 20, so it cannot be bigger. So what we have then done is we have converted our percentage into a fraction. Okay, and we can do this, remember, because they are equivalent. Okay, and then we have multiplied our fraction by the total amount, which is 20, and that has given us our answer, which is 2. Okay, so 10% of 20 is 2. Okay, and I've just kind of highlighted that here. Don't want to show you my cats yet. That 2 of 20. Right, so some of you might be looking at me at the screen and being like, Mr. Ellis, what on earth are you talking about? Don't worry, we're going to go over another example now, which should help you, okay? So here we have our next question, our next percentage of amount we need to work out. So 10% of 10. What is 10% of 10? And I'm showing you our lovely amount of 10 here in some beautiful shiny cats, which I have found on the internet. So we need to work out what 10% of 10 is. Okay, now remember, we can't just do 10 times 10 because that would give us 100. And remember, 10%, okay, is a part of 10, so it cannot be bigger than 10. So the first thing we need to do, as they are equivalent, is to turn our percentage into a fraction. Okay, so step 1 is to convert the percentage into a fraction. So we are going to convert 10 into a fraction. Very simple. 10% is the same as 10 over 100. Okay, that's step 1. Now, step 2 is to multiply the fraction by the total amount. The total amount being 10. Okay, and remember, we're putting it over 1 because that is showing us that we have one group of 10. Okay, so multiplication times top and times bottom. So 10 times 10 is 100. 100 times 1 is 100. Now remember, we have a problem here. 100 is bigger than our amount, okay, of 10. And remember, 10% is part of 10. Okay, so it can't be bigger than 10. So what do we need to do? We need to simplify. So step 3 is to simplify. We need to simplify the fraction. Okay, so we have 100 over 100. Straight away, we can just reduce it by 10 times. So we can knock off these two zeros. So it would be 10 over 10. Again, we can knock off the next two zeros because we can reduce it by 10 again, 10 times again, which would give us 1 over 1. And remember, the top number tells us what the answer is. So 10% of 10 is equal to 1. Okay, and then the bottom number is just telling us that we have 1 whole of 10. Okay, so just to recap again, like I did with the last one. Okay, so we were trying to work out what 10% of 10 is. We can't just do 10 times 10 because that would give us 100. And remember, 10 is a part of 10. 10% is part of 10, so it cannot be bigger than 10. So what we've done then is we've converted our percentage to a fraction as they are equivalent. Okay, and then we have multiplied our fraction by our amount, which is 10. Okay, and that's given us our answer of 1. Okay, so 10% of 10 is 1. Then just put your answer there, 10% is 1. And I've just kind of hided 1 to show you that 1 is 10% of 10 is 1. Say goodbye to the cats. Bye, cats. Excellent. Right, so your superstars, this is your task. Complete the following percentage of amounts questions. So here you have 3% of amounts questions. Your task is to complete them. Now, I'm going to do one with you, okay? Just a hint, that's the wrong word, not a hint. This is a bit of advice for Blue Zone people. I would advise doing this as well if you want to. If you don't want to and you're very confident with it, don't worry. Okay, so I'm going to do the first one with you, superstars. So the first one was to find what is 10% of 30. So the first thing we need to do is we need to convert the percentage into a fraction. Remember, we're doing this because we can't just do 10 times 30, 10% times 30, because that will give us too big of a number. Okay, so 10% as a fraction is 10 over 100. So that's step 1. Step 2 is to then multiply the fraction by the amount. So 10 over 100 times 30, which is our total amount, equals 300 over 100. Remember, you multiply top and bottom. But we have a problem again. Ooh. No, didn't, but that's good. Right, so 300 over 100. But we have a problem. 300 is bigger than our amount, which is 30. And as we know, that is a big problem. Okay, so what we're going to do, we are going to simplify, which is our step 3. We need to simplify the fraction. Okay, so 300, and we've got 300 over 100, so we can just knock off 2 zeros straight away. Okay, as we can reduce it by 10 times, so we get 30 over 10. Sorry, I've already crossed these out. So we've got 30 over 10, and then what you would do is you can knock off those 2 zeros as we are reducing it again by 10 times, which gives us 3 over 1, and the top one is our answer. So 10% of 30 is 3. Okay, superstars, please pause the video and complete those percentage of amount questions, and then press play when you're ready to go through the answers. Right, so welcome back, superstars, and anyone else who has been doing this. So number 1 is 3, number 2 is 4, and number 3 is 5. Okay, at this point, guys, if you didn't get that quite right, do not worry. Please just send me an email so I can give you a bit of extra support. So, welcome back, everybody. Okay, it is nice to see everybody, and we are now going to do a bit more learning before I set you off on the Blue Zone task. So we can do the same thing for other percentages. So we can use the same method to work at other percentages. At the moment, we've just been doing 10% of amounts, but we could do 20%, 30, 40, 50, 60, 62, 42, 32, and I can't think of any numbers, okay? And we can use exactly the same method to do it, and I'm going to show you. So the example we're going to use is to find out 20% of 30. Now remember, we cannot just do 20% times 30 because that would give us 600, which is way too much, okay? So what we need to do is we need to convert 20% into a fraction as it is equivalent. So that's the first step. Step 1 is to convert the percentage into a fraction. Okay, so 20% is the same as 20 over 100, and you should know this. We did this yesterday. Step 2 is to then multiply the fraction by the total amount. So 20 over 100 times 30 over 1. So you do times top and bottom. So 20 times 30 is 600, and 100 times 1 is 100. Now, 600 is too big of a number as it is bigger than our total amount, which is 30, and you know why that is problematic. So what we're going to do, we are going to simplify. So step 3 is to simplify. We need to simplify the fraction, okay? So we can knock off these straight away. We can knock off these 2 zeros because we can reduce it straight away by 10 times. So we get 60 over 10. and then we can knock off those 2 zeros again, because we can reduce it again by 10 times. So we would be left with 6 over 1, and remember the top number is our answer. So 20% of 30 is 6, okay? And 1, remember, is representing our whole number, which is 30, okay? Our total is 30. Lovely. Excellent. So, Blue Zone. This is everyone, but specifically Blue Zone, as some of you are just starting this now. You are going to find out these percentages of amounts. So here you have 4 percentages of amounts questions, and I would like you to answer them. And I'd prefer that you use the step-by-step guide that I have used, as it will help you. So everyone, please pause the video, complete that task, and then press play when you're ready to go through the answers. So the answers were 1 was 4, 2 was 24, 3 was 15, and 4 was 48. Okay, now at this point, guys, if that was, if you really struggled with that, that's fine. Please just send me an email and I will provide you with support. Do not just struggle with this alone, because this is very important, and don't be embarrassed. Honestly, it's taken me, when I was younger, it took me such a long time to learn this, so it's all good. Right. At this point, I'd like to say goodbye to Superstars. You are free to go and do whatever you want to do. I will see you tomorrow. I'd love to see your work. Please send me in your work. Blue Zone people only, please stay on this video, as we are going to do one more thing. Goodbye, Superstars. Right, so I should only have Blue Zone people with me. So Blue Zone people, you are now going to work out some more percentages of amounts questions, okay? But obviously these numbers are a bit more difficult. They're not as easy, so the multiplications are going to be a bit harder, okay? So your first 3 questions are just to work out percentages of amounts. You can use exactly the same method that I provided you with. And then the 4th question is probably the most important one out of these, which is our problem solving question. So I have 50 cats. I give away 70% of them. How many do I have left? Okay? I'm not actually going to give you any help on this. The only thing I'm going to tell you is read the question, okay? Don't just do 50, don't just do 70% of 50 and then that's the answer. You need to read what the answer is asking you for, what the question is asking you for, because that will enable you to get the right answer. Don't just do 70% of 50 and be like, right, that's the answer, because it's not, okay? Right, Blue Zone, have a fabulous day. I'd love to see your work. Please send me your work and I will check in with you tomorrow. Adios, amigo.
Oh, right, so I finished my lesson and now I can finally give this guy his money. So I've worked out that 15% of 120 using this method, this step-by-step method, okay, is 18. So I need to give him 18 pounds. Right, that was scary, guys. That was really scary. Anyway, enough of that. I will check in with you tomorrow. Please just send me your work if you can. I would love to see it, and I'll send you the work back. Right, goodbye.